We have Sebastian from HOPR. We have Ryan from Dusk, Isa from Silent Protocol, and Hadrien. Wherever you like. Oh. In order. I'm on the wrong side. Oh no. Now we need to cancel the panel. All right, let's give it a start with a brief introduction. Sebastian.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Sebastian. I'm working on privacy on the most bottom layer of the stack. So HOPR is a project that focuses on data transport. You can imagine HOPR like a more private version of a VPN or Tor to send data from A to B. And on top of that, we are building, on top of this general purpose infrastructure, we are building RPCH, which is the first truly private RPC provider that cannot lead to data harvesting of users.
Yeah, I'm Ryan. I'm head of business development at Dusk Network. And Dusk is a privacy-preserving layer 1 that's focused on tokenizing regulated assets. So as the name suggests, these are assets which are highly regulated. And so it's that clash between compliance and privacy that's very much core to what we do.
Hi, I'm Hadrien, founder of Sismo, but I won't bore you with more details.
Hi, I'm Isa. I'm co-founder and CTO of Silent Protocol. Silent is a middleware solution that tries to bring privacy into the user's comfort zone on public chains to interact in a privacy-preserving manner with the existing regular decentralized applications in a full composable way.
Thank you. We start this conversation with a few controversial opinions on compliance and security and privacy. Sebastian, what's your most controversial opinion on this topic?
Yeah, I think that, like, what the fuck is compliance even, right? Compliance is some rules that a bunch of dudes typically make up behind closed doors that go beyond the law and are kind of arbitrary and that are hindering other people in their free choices that they make. And that's not great, right? So I think that technology can lead to, avoiding crimes and bad actors. I very much like this term of technology-regulated venues that I think Mona from Enzyme was coining a while ago. Yeah, so I think we should focus less on traditional compliance and more on technology that prevents users to get harmed.
Top that off, Ryan.
I suppose I'm going to go slightly the other way. I guess my controversial opinion would be that we should probably be quite welcoming of more compliance into the space, more regulation into the space. I think it allows us good people in the industry to get on with building the things that we need to build in peace. And it helps us to keep those bandits, I suppose, out of the industry. And I don't know about everybody else, but I'm a little bit tired of going to other industries and the only people from our industry they've heard of are Luna or FTX. And I don't particularly want people like Sam to be the ambassador for the entire industry.
Yeah, mine I guess would be to trust the process and not care that much about the current regulations, but like care a lot about users and actually incorporate into our products like user protection and actual regulation. For instance, you can think about like a tornado cache that makes sure that there's no bad actors within this protocol and not care about like what governance that are still outdated think today. I think that they will adapt, so it's up to us to show the way, the real leaders that will be here in 5 years. And so, yeah, let's not care too much and just build the alternative, I think.
When we look at the Web2 space, how the Web2 application solves compliance. So currently we have the regulations, and the main point to be regulatory or compliant with those regulations is to have consent from the users. And all the things just pinned to this point. And the companies gets the consent and they do whatever they would like to do. That is actually the problem right now we are facing on Web2 space. So in the Web3 space, since we are on the road to redefine the new mechanisms and maintain innovations, technological innovations within the system, currently we are facing the problem to distinguish the stolen funds, illicit activities, and criminal actors from our privacy-preserving solutions so that these arguments can be nullified. Yeah? If we can manage this part at the first place, we can have better pace to develop more privacy-preserving solutions, I believe.
Very well said. I think Web3 is also the moment to reset the whole industry. How can we influence the amount of user privacy in dApps? Do you have any idea on that, Sebastian?
Yes, so I think it's up to the application developers who are here who really leverage decentralized technologies and make them aware of that. And, you know, I think it's up to us to ship applications that are not made available to the user on something that ends on .com, .org, .net, and so on. Every single piece of centralized technologies will get captured earlier or later. Every single one. We're seeing how, you know, our good friend Uncle Sam is coming after everything that moves, you know, in the US. And that's great. That's great. Because it pushes decentralized and privacy-respecting technologies. So in that regard, I'm kind of aligned with the end game of regulation, even though in a weird way. And that is all our choices. So everyone who builds technologies here, builds applications, please do respect users' privacy. Otherwise, you will get fucked personally.
Ryan, on regulation, do you have something to add on that?
More broadly, I suppose I'd bring it back to so many conversations I have with friends, with family members, debating with people on the internet about, you know, where should that trust come from? Like, is it more risky to trust a government with your data, or is it more risky to trust a private company with your data? And I think the answer is you can't really trust either. So then it seems to me the answer to that question is that nobody should have that data to begin with. Let's not give it to them, and let's not give them the temptation by allowing them to have it. And we have a fantastic opportunity here to build this in, because if we're talking about Web 2, I think it's probably fair to say that the battle for Web 2 has already been lost, partly because we didn't realize we were fighting a battle until it was already over. But we're just at the start of building Web 3. So we've got a great opportunity to build this in at the foundational level. I think a lot of us know Tim Berners-Lee talks a lot about one of his biggest regrets being not building some kind of identity solution in at the foundation level when he got started. But we can actually do that, and the proper privacy solutions that come with that. We can build that right now before it gets out to the masses. While it's still in this relatively small circle, we can shape it into what it needs to be before we push it out into the general population.
So trust nobody and build. Hadrien.
Yeah, I think that there's an opportunity that might be hidden. I think it's in the data management. So Sismo, we are here to make your data sovereign and that you use it everywhere with sovereignty and with privacy. And I think that it's less heavy to go into these fields. Like, I think it's hard to do regulations around assets, around money, around these kind of things, because like governments are very involved in that. But if you take a look at the regulations that are more into data, that have started with Web 2, there are actually a lot of opportunity to start to incorporate the same technologies that we use for financial services, but I think the opportunity is easier. Like, there are European policies that are trying to have, for instance, the passport on-chain or as a VC, verifiable credential. And when talking to regulators, they are actually interested with the solutions like Sismo. So that could be also a nice path to do things right around data and show them that this tech is really good, and let's do it on the financial services. That's yeah, good opportunity.
Isa, what is the biggest challenge that you face while building your product?
Actually, so of course we are trying to provide our solution on the public chain, and let users interact with the decentralized application in a privacy-preserving manner. So there are some constraints that are coming from the transparent side we need to handle properly. And so this was the initial phase for us, but we have successfully managed to solve this one by creating anonymous channels and letting users to accumulate their assets in a privacy-preserving environment and then splitting them to interact with the decentralized application by using some proxy identifiers. So within this manner, we hope to maintain users to have full composability without having any delay within the mechanism. So user friendliness is the main issue, I believe, while we are creating a traction to gain much more privacy-aware Web3 users. So I believe that we have managed this part. And of course, the second part is to how to manage or how to keep bad actors from our private environment. And for that, we are kind of utilizing a solution similar to the one that Amin mentioned earlier today. And apart from that, we are creating a sub-DAO that behaves as a compliance group. And if a stolen asset had been brought into the system, they can evaluate the situation, behave as a private advocacy, and then if it is certain, then it would be possible to provide the necessary details of those transactions or transactions to the regulatory bodies.
Sebastian, how do you deal with this?
Yeah, so I think a challenge that we see is that people want to collect user data. And specifically, one fundamental challenge that I see is on the marketing side. We want to know more, right? We want to understand user behavior to optimize things. And like this mindset shift is really tricky to deal with. So that's one of the more tricky things that I see. But ultimately, I think it's fine that we want to find out something, but make sure that you do so in a way that protect users. And kind of how we do that at HOPR is we want to bring you the ability to offer digital products without allowing user tracking on the most fundamental layer, right, which is IP data, IP address-based tracking. So yeah, ultimately it really is a mind shift in embracing privacy, going all the way, think about the user, think about yourself, because you know that regulators are going to come after you if you do fuck up. And yeah, so protect privacy on all layers, because otherwise this is going to backfire badly.
Very clear. Ryan, how's that in the financial asset industry that you're in?
Challenges. I think, well, there's obviously a lot. We wouldn't be trying to fix finance if it was already perfect. But I suppose one of the biggest challenges is that these entities have this huge data spaghetti of existing technology, and then any solution that we offer has to go into that or onto that, and no asset issuer, no bank, no financial institution is going to throw out all their old stack and replace it with what we have, since we solve one very particular problem for them. And so, obviously we can build the most secure, the most privacy-preserving thing in the world, but it has to interact with this other stuff, which we don't know if it will be or not. So we have to work on some solutions to that, whether we can assist with that or at least just make sure that our part is as good as it can be. But this is a challenge. Yeah.
Nicely said. Hadrien, how do you deal with that in Sismo?
Yeah, what the challenges, right?
Yeah.
I think it's we are very on the crypto native side and the crypto community, and I think it's it's hard to speak with regulators and to educate them, I guess. And there's always this balance to find between being super focused on building the alternative and educating regulators. For instance, before launching Sismo, I was working in DeFi, and I think it was a mistake to go to them too early, because you lose time and then you pin yourself in the system. So, but at the same time, if you don't do the education, then the society won't benefit from what you're doing. So it's finding these paths. I know that I've met, for instance, the French government for data, and they have interested use cases, and they are interested in Sismo. And so how to make sure that on long term we manage to get into the conversation as if we imagine that we are one of the most legitimate builders, how to take the spot without losing your focus at actually being the best builders. So that would be the challenge, I think, for me.
I think we can agree that you all are embracing regulation. How can we help the regulators to understand what we're doing and give user privacy a priority, same with compliance and security?
So actually, currently we have seen different approaches to create. So we all agree are in the same fact. Privacy is a human right. So we all know this. But when we look at the previous history on the internet style, there was a strategic campaign that was kind of preventing that these words are spread out to the massive users so that they can be aware of it, and then there is a growth in the privacy awareness. So currently we are paying for this strategy, and that is why we have been doing all the events. These type of events are contributing in a positive manner. We developers taking our part so that we are trying to find privacy-preserving solutions in an user-friendly way, much more efficient way, and also trying to solve the use cases within this manner. I think from the developers and the hackers' perspective, we are doing our best, I guess, within the same manner by being regulatory friendly. But still, we will be having the struggles, as we have seen from the Tornado Cash and then Alex unfortunate event. So, but in the end, I believe that we are in a good path, and we will conquer this, and we will kind of reach out to our dreams in a much more faster manner, I believe.
Nice. Education is still a big topic. Sebastian, how do you think we can help educate the regulators?
Yeah, so I think being more actively engaged in the process is something that many, especially technically interested folks, are not really interested in doing, but that's our future, right? So we can try to go against regulation, we can try to go anon and so on. For most of us, for most people who actually build products, that doesn't work. So I would just say engaging in the process, engaging with lawyers, not because you want something from them, but also because you can help them understand, is super damn important. If they don't understand what we are building here, they will come up with bullshit regulations, right? So it's up to every single one of us here who's building products, who's involved in the infrastructure side of things, to really engage and educate them. I've seen it in Switzerland play out pretty nicely. So we have what is called a DLT law, which is kind of a technology-neutral law that allows you to issue, for example, shares as a first-class citizen in the eye of the law. And that's pretty cool. Like, you know, you had law firms that were like really leading law firms in the country, which were in working groups drafting laws. You know, it's not some random people who write laws. It's typically working groups that are working very deeply in a very engaged fashion on that. And yeah, do reach out to these folks and offer your help. They are very grateful because to them it's really like a foreign language that they have to understand. They're struggling, right? And they contacted me, for example, saying, hey, like, can you help us understand what is this hard fork thing? Like, you know, how do we deal with that? When you issue shares and now there's 2 shares, like what happens? So there's a lot of really technological insights that have huge impact for regulators. Please do help these guys. Many of them do not have bad intentions. Many of them do want to do right by their mandate to protect the people, right? And we got to help them. That's my answer.
Nice answer. Ryan, developers and lawyers at the table, will that solve everything in the regulation?
Say again, sorry?
Developers and lawyers at the table, does that solve all the issues?
I think it really goes a long way. I mean, generally, I couldn't agree more with Sebastian about engaging with the regulators. You can even, I would just tag on and say there are also other ways to educate the legislators, because, for example, here in the EU, we've got a couple of very nice schemes. The DLT pilot scheme, which allows you to build things like MTFs or trading and settlement system on the DLT infrastructure, and also the regulatory sandbox, which allows a much broader scope of regulations. Now, you're actually building within these rules. So this is not so much in the literal sense about educating the regulators, you're building, but you have to explain to them what you're going to build in layman's terms, in TLDR terms. They have to understand it, they have to sign off on it, and then you give them updates along the way. And so again, when they sit down and decide they're going to write rules, they're going to write rules based on what they've seen, and they'll have seen your stuff. So it makes sense that you should be building, taking advantage of these opportunities to build on these things right now and put it right in the front of the regulators' minds for when they decide to come up with some final legislation.
Hadrien, do you think it's a perk that you're in France? France is a bit more innovative in regulations, while Europe should be one united front. It differs per country.
Could you repeat just to be sure?
Do you think that you being based in France is a perk because the regulation there is a bit more innovative and stressed already?
From my side, I wouldn't say that. I would say that they are all somehow the same, trying to figure out things. And so about education, again, I think that we all have a different role to play, but we should be all together. And one way to get there into the education is to get into a leadership position and do it well. Meaning that that's a way to be like, you can think about FTX and Coinbase, for instance, both were leaders. One of the two was better at actually trying to regulate itself for the sake of users. And so that's also a good path to be, is just take the leadership position, try to satisfy users, and then you can have an impact and show the things. So that's also one way to educate, I think. It's to focus on having a large base of users and respect them and prove that your solution is better than their solution for regulating and protecting users.
So privacy by design, if we all build that, would that solve all compliance and security issues?
So currently we are facing the problem of the definition within the Web3 space, yeah? So from the lawful perspective, we still don't have a proper definition for the different assets. And they have been trying to build one, and even that is the case, based on the regions, based on the countries, those jurisdictions are different. So the first thing before coming to developer part is to finalize these definitions, I believe. And it seems that it will take some more time so that we can still have time to innovatively develop different projects and utilize solve different use cases. But the case is that, so we need to handle this part in a two different manner. We need to accept that we should have whole private environment, L1s, so on and so forth. But on the other side, we currently have transparent L1s as well. So in both of these phases, we can utilize the privacy by design in our privacy preserving solutions by also taking into account the regulatory parts as well. So that is our life. Of course, some parties may try to gain as much data as possible. That is the thing we need to fight against. So basic regulations already satisfy and should comply the user privacy, yeah? So that is the part we will be kind of facing some issues, I believe. But still, I'm very optimistic in this way, and we are in the good track, and we will be able to provide solutions in this manner.
Thank you. Thanks to all the panelists. We have some audience questions. I have a nice one for you, Sebastian. Your comment on innovation is the worst enemy of all innovation worst enemy of regulations.
Sorry, say that again.
Innovation's worst enemy are regulators.
So, in a way, yes, regulators are holding back innovation. On the other hand, I think it's important to focus on what is the mission, right? What is the reason for regulators to exist? They exist so that individuals don't get screwed all day long. I think that is largely aligned with the goals of Web3. Like, we're building self-custodial technologies that empower the individual so that you are protected from overreaching organizations, governments, and individuals. So to some degree, we are mission aligned, even though sometimes we are, getting entangled a bit.
I have one for you as well, Ryan. What's up with the fact that regulators are always affected politically parties rather than focusing on the benefits of the majority of the population?
One more time, sorry.
What's up with the fact that regulators are always affected politically rather than focusing on the benefits of the majority of the population?
That's a great question. That's unfortunately something that you cannot avoid. When you talk about regulators, they do work for governments. It does depend on the country, though. It's not always the same everywhere. There are countries where regulators are part of the civil service and they're somewhat politically neutral compared to the people that are telling them what to do. But we are unfortunately living in a period of time where the political neutrality of things like the civil service is maybe getting lower than it has been in the previous decades, which is unfortunate that we're in that particular period. But at the end of the day, though, if we're talking about countries where there's a vote, a democratic vote, you can be politically aligned, but you still have to win an election at some point. So you do have to think about winning a majority of hearts and minds at some point. So still compared to the alternatives, I think I'd rather have this system.
Okay, clear. I think that's also one of the issues with regulators. They're there for just a certain amount of time, and every 4 years, or other terms, their terms change, their election agenda changes, and yeah, innovation doesn't go over 4 years all the time. So
yeah, it takes time to write legislation as well, to have all the consultations, to get all the groups involved, to get the opinions, to write it down. You know, these things sometimes they might not be finished within a single political term. They could take course over 2 or 3 political terms, in which case the parties could change. That could be a good thing, potentially, to get different inputs along the way.
thank you. Then I have a nice closure question for Hadrien. Who actually cares enough about privacy to take action and not just talk about it?
Us, I guess. No, but I think the way to care about privacy is to realize, that was what I was explaining in my talk, but that privacy is not only a feature, it's not like I can do it in public and I can do it in private, that with privacy you can do so much more. Web3 is about taking ownership of our identity on the internet, of our assets, and with privacy you can do so much more in a so much safer way. So it's bringing value to actual people. So it should be obvious. So let's just build it, and we have the technologies today. It was not the case 20 years ago, neither 10 years ago actually. So yeah, builders can build and make users enjoy without even knowing about it. That's what we're trying to do, that users feel the power of privacy without needing it. Like one of the very known sentence is users don't care about privacy. That was true in the Web 2 world where they didn't get access to all the data, so of course they don't care about privacy. Like it's privacy by design by Web 2 companies because it's held hostage in servers. But now that we get back the power of data to users, we need privacy to make like products that were not possible before. So hopefully they won't care still, but they will enjoy it.
Sebastian.
Yeah, maybe just a last shout out here. If you care about privacy, I guess most of you know it, you should run your own nodes. If you want to run your own node but don't have one, there's actually a raffle going on right now. Shout out to dApp node. And ETHDam, you can win a HOPR branded top-notch dApp node. Check out the Twitter accounts of ETHDam, HOPR, and dApp node. And somebody's running around here carrying a dApp node if you can solve the puzzle.
Nice one. Well, thank you all. Any questions from the room still? Nobody? Well, let's all carry... Emmanuel, go ahead.
I have a question for the panel, which I think is relevant. When we're talking about regulations, we are normally talking about 2 different things. One is compliance, and the other one is law enforcement. What is your take about that, and how compliance and law enforcement play different roles with technology, especially in a fully automated Web3 landscape?
Summarizing, how does the panel look at compliance and law enforcement? Who wants to take this one? Oh, don't be shy.
So in the law enforcement side, so if I understand by this, do you mean the illicit activities, so that those should be discriminated from the legitimate users, yeah? You mean that one, I believe, if I understand it correctly. So if this is the case, of course, we should be providing, or we should be trying to distinguish these bad actors from the normal user perspective. So this is one part. But when we come to the compliance part, I think it is very broad term, as it is in the case of the privacy definition. So I remember the days there was a quotation, probably it was Google's previous CEO, one of the previous CEOs. He said that, okay, if you have something to hide, you shouldn't be doing it for the first place, he said in one of the broadcasted programs. And in those days, we were still having the regulations, and we all know that privacy is still human right. So that is why I said a strategic campaign were in place against these type of regulations. So we need to have a proper definition, but before we need to define the assets, then we need to define the compliance again with respect to data minimization. So that is the cure part here, because there are lots of cases and lots of data has been collected about the users, their financial interactions, their social environment, any personal identifiable information are tried to be stored somewhere so that they can harvest some extra business logic use cases. So that is the part what we are discussing actually. And here, when we are talking about this, the definition with respect to data minimization should be in place within those regulations so that we can be compliant and also respecting the human right at the same time, I believe.
Thank you so much. I would suggest to discuss this further outside of the stage. Thank you all, and well, let's all care about our privacy.